Good morning. This is the Toronto Daily News for Tuesday, January 1st, 2019. The federal carbon tax comes into effect right now. At first, it's just going to affect large industrial emitters that are above a certain threshold. But in April, we are going to have to start paying the price as well in terms of increased costs of goods and services. And the government is apparently going to compensate for that by offering us various rebates and stuff. Traffic in downtown Toronto on New Year's Day was so light. If for whatever reason anyone needs to, or wants to do some experiment or filming or whatever that requires light traffic, it seems like New Year's Day is a good time to do that. A woman was arrested for stabbing two men near Danforth in Maine. There was also a stabbing in Queen, 5 a.m., non-life threatening. Police are investigating the shooting of a man who was just in his car in a parking lot, walked to the hospital. They are also searching for a male suspect in a robbery near King and Portland. A man stole a woman's purse. He's short, he's 5 feet tall, he's got a small build, and he was wearing a navy jacket with his hood up at the time. If you were in the area at the time, you noticed the guy, maybe let the cops know about it. So the LCBO theft situation in Ontario, you'd think after the press reporting on it a little bit, maybe people would dial it back a little bit, but right on New Year's Day, somebody drove their car right into a London, Ontario LCBO store and conducted a robbery that way. That's pretty extreme robbery. But in terms of cars driving into buildings and driving onto sidewalks and driving onto bus shelters and stuff, and other crazy drunk driving incidents, it wasn't that nuts of a New Year's. Police charged 22 people with drunk driving, including one person who happens to be an Uber driver. And I say that because he wasn't driving Uber at the time, but Uber has actually banned him from their app. So I guess they're going to go ahead and ban people for high profile getting in trouble for drunk driving, even if they are not signed into Uber at the time, because they verified that the guy was not. That was his original claim. But there has been a hit and run. Driver struck a pedestrian at 4:30 a.m. St. Clair and Dufferin. Looked like a white either Honda Civic or Accord. In activism news, there was a event, and it's actually quite an intersectional one between the environmentalist movement and the vegan movement, which veganism movement, of course, is like also tied to animal rights movements. So, and I think we can expect more of this kind of stuff where environmental and animal rights or vegan movements are intersecting. And so, but anyway, at Bay and Bloor, about 50 activists apparently did a die-in, and it was critical of the new Brazilian president who plans to remove prohibitions on logging the Amazon rainforest. So there's not that much Amazon remaining. He wants to go ahead and get rid of a whole bunch of the remaining Amazon, and a lot of deforestation globally and in the Amazon is tied to meat production. So this is part of a global veganism, environmentalism effort to cut out half of our pollution by just going vegan. So CTV did report this on their website, but they kept it out of the evening news and decided to pretend that sports is news instead. So they reported on a Raptors game instead. Tuesday is going to be cold with maybe some light early afternoon drizzle, like 15%, which means, 10 minutes every hour you're going to have to like get under something if you're outside. So we made it through New Year's Eve without any kind of weird mass violence or whatever. We had some fights and people getting stabbed and people getting robbed and stuff. Robbery seems to have been the real criminal theme. Not that much crazy uh, driving casualties. Not that much, which is, New Year's Eve. Everybody was so concerned about the distracted and drunk driving situation, but what has actually caused damage is this. Well, and this double stabbing near Danforth in Maine that this woman got arrested for. She stabbed these two guys a whole bunch. But internationally, there's sort of three high-profile mass anonymous violence incidents. There was a knife attack in England. Police actually got the guy, a whole bunch of people on a train platform, and he was apparently shouting Islamic slogans at the time. And in Germany somewhere there's a attack with a vehicle and then also a van attack in Tokyo, and this guy was avenging the deaths of some, I'm not super clear on this, some other terrorists who were part of some doomsday cult. So all in all, I mean, I'd say not a super horrific New Year's Eve, and I guess the most annoying thing about it was probably the rain. Well, not to mention, hospitalizations for the stabbings, and they got attacked. I think the guy that got pistol whipped and robbed, or somebody else that got attacked in that same area, is still in critical condition, and cops still don't have. No, those were the guys that fled in a light blue vehicle. So there's a couple people really terrifying to happen with their ear. And there's that hit and run, but this guy who got shot in his car in the parking lot, he was basically almost okay. He walked himself to the hospital. This seems to be this sort of pattern of people getting shot and then walking to the hospital, and it's just making me wonder, like, what I do know for a fact that our ambulance situation can be kind of sketchy. Actually, I once ran into somebody downtown, and this was like 2 blocks south of Toronto Western General, and he seemed like he was having a stroke or something like that, and I couldn't get him to follow me to the hospital. I couldn't get him to go to the hospital, and I couldn't for the life of me get an ambulance to get to us. And I was on the phone with 911, for like literally a half hour, kind of following this guy around the area, and we weren't going far, and they weren't really like, "Oh, we're here, we're looking for you, where are you?" They sort of just kept asking where I was. And it's 2 blocks away. Like, I was on Queen and Bathurst. The hospital is at Dundas and Bathurst. Like, I could have, like, clocked this guy over the head or, like, thrown him over my shoulder and walked him up. But anyway, so we might have an ambulance problem, which kind of sucks because we also have sort of a hospital problem. Like, right downtown, you can totally walk to the hospital. But not downtown, you can't really walk to the hospital. You're like, okay, I really do need an ambulance, or more likely a cab or something. Um, anyway, so this is for Toronto and the Daily News for Toronto for first day of 2019. I'm your host, Dorian. Have a great second day of 2019.